Hello, my name is Kim Wynn, and I am the Children's Librarian at the Studio City branch of the Los Angeles Public Library. It's a pleasure to welcome you to today's Your Author program featuring Dan Santat as he discusses his new book, A Fish Boy. This is Don't Trust Fish, A Fish Boy Named Sashimi. We want to thank our generous donors, the Lenore S and Bernard A. Greenberg Fund, as well as the Library Foundation and our amazing behind-the-scenes staff for helping the library bring these author and illustrator programs to you. Thank you all so very much. And we would also like to recognize and acknowledge the first people of this land, their elders, past and present, as well as their descendants. For more information about the territory on which you reside, check out native-land.ca. And now on to today's Your Author program. Dan Santat is a #1 New York Times bestselling author and illustrator of over 100 books. His picture book, The Adventures of Beagle, the Unimaginary Friend, was awarded the Caldecott Medal in 2015, and his young adult graphic memoir, A First Time for Everything, won the National Book Award for Young People's Literature in 2023. His other works include critically acclaimed books like After the Fall, How Humpty Dumpty Got Back Up Again, Ricky Ricotta's Mighty Robot, Drawn Together, and the Misfit series. Dan is also the creator of the hit Disney Channel animated series, The Replacements. And this year, Dan partnered with us at the Los Angeles Public Library and created the artwork for our Summer with the Library program. So you'll be able to take home some of his artwork when you participate in our Summer with the Library challenge starting on June 6th. Dan is here today to share his new book, A Fish Boy Named Sashimi. Welcome, Dan.
Very much for having me. Pleasure.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course, anytime.
And where are you calling in from?
I am in New York. I'm just out here on some business. So I'm kind of in a common space in a hotel lobby. So it's fairly quiet, so I don't think we'll get any disruptions.
Yeah, that's great. And we're out promoting Sashimi. Let's just dive right in. Can you tell us more about your new graphic novel series, A Fish Boy Named Sashimi? I also had seen that you said it was originally a picture book idea. So I'm curious about your inspiration behind the story and how you decided to change the format.
Yeah, so, oops. Sorry. Here's my new book, Fish Boy Named Sashimi, and it's I'll give you a quick summary. It's a graphic novel. It's about this sea creature that comes to this place called Barnacle Bay, and he hears about this urban myth called the Beast of Barnacle Bay, and it kind of sounds like it resembles him. It's like a sea creature, kind of like your Bigfoot or Loch Ness monster. And while he's there, he sneaks into an elementary school. Uses that school as a home base, and then he disguises himself as one of the classroom children, getting everything he needs from the school Lost and Found, because I think, as we all know, you go to any elementary school, every Lost and Found is a big bucket of yuck. And he can basically get everything he needs: clothes, lunch boxes, water bottles, and what have you. And while he's there, he lives in the classroom fishbowl, and he befriends some of the kids in the class. And then as the series goes on, he meets other colorful characters in town. Someone by the name of Poop Duck Pete, who's like this method actor, pirate, who works in this historical society, pretending he's a fisherman that lived back in the 1800s. And he's the only person who's seen the Beast of Barnacle Bay with his own eyes. And so he's obsessed with capturing this beast. His grandson is Joey, who is this kid that Sashimi actually befriends. And so there's this careful, fine line that he has to navigate, where he has to be friends with Joey, but also keep his distance from the grandfather. Other characters are, Chloe, is this Chinese gospel There's Marco, he's like the school nerd. Um, and then there's another character named Ben, who owns this museum of the Beast of Barnacle Bay, and he collects all these artifacts all over town. And so, right now we have it set for a 6 book series. This is the first one. The second book comes out in this September. I'm already working on the fourth book,
Wow.
and I think the best way to describe it is just like this really odd, silly, slapstick, fun kind of book that it takes me back to reading Garfield and Calvin and Hobbes, and I was a big fan of Mad Magazine. And Mad Magazine, there was like a lot of wit, so I'm
Hmm.
I'm injecting a lot of like nonsensical, but the kind of humor where if you stop and think about it, you're like, oh yeah, I can relate to that. So I do a lot of jokes about school and parenting, but things that both kids and parents can kind of identify with, like parents complaining about having to wait in the carpool line. you know I mean, kids probably can't relate because they're not the ones in the car. But if a parent's reading this to the kid, they can say, "Oh, I can definitely relate to this." Um, and that's really my intent with the series, is that I'd like it to be something that kids will just gobble up and have all these like inside jokes that just build on throughout the series. Um, and then as we're going into book 4, 5, and 6, those little inside jokes just keep carrying on. Then maybe if you meet someone in the classroom who makes that reference, you get it because you read the series, and it just seems to be like this little exclusive thing that readers of this book will be able to share. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm just kind of looking for this way to engage with kids that can almost make this series feel like you're part of a club.
Hmm.
um, and it's kind of like you know when people are watching this show that like gets really popular and is streaming on TV, and then everyone just starts referencing it, and then if and that's what I'm hoping to build here.
That sounds amazing. And I love that
Yeah,
sashimi is someone's white whale.
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
I love the expansiveness of this world, and I can see as you're talking about it why this would feel so much more like an ongoing, multi-part series as
Hmm.
opposed to one self-contained picture book. So,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
also Sidekicks, one of your other series, is massively popular at my library. So I'm very delighted to hear that book two is already coming, three and four are already in the works.
Right,
So,
right. And there's a whole story arc in that. I mean, for me,
mm,
if I'm going to do a series, it's very important to have an overall story arc so that
mhm,
there's like, a long thread that carries through. And then by the time you're done with the series, each one gives you a little taste of what, that feeds into the overall plot.
mhm.
That way there's a connection to all of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Oh, well, we're so excited to see more of the series. And as you said, book one is already out. Book two is on the way very soon.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I wanted to talk a bit more about sort of your path and your process as an artist.
Hmm.
You've done so much in your career already through all these different mediums. You've worked in video games, you've worked in television. We mentioned the replacements up at the top.
Yeah.
You've worked in advertising, and of course, you're
Hmm.
very prolific in your literary career. So, I wonder if you can speak a bit more about your journey as an artist and how your work across all these different formats has influenced how you work now as an author and illustrator.
So, starting out as a kid growing up, I was an only child. My mother had a medical condition. She had lupus, an autoimmune disease. And so a lot of my time was spent at home, just drawing because she couldn't take me out as much. And so I was mostly self-taught. They never let me take art classes. But you learned a tremendous amount just from checking out books from the library. I was a reluctant reader because I had comprehension issues. And so if I would just see a book that was just filled with words, I had to read really slowly because it just took a long time for me to absorb what it was saying. And then I had a school librarian, Mrs. Whitley. She gave me this book, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, because she knew that I could teach myself how to draw instead of taking art classes. And that was literally the first book that made me fall in love with reading because it gave me purpose. Um, and I checked that all through grade school. And it also actually made me fall in love with popular comics like Marvel and DC, Spider-Man, The Incredible Hulk, X-Men, and things like that. And I used to have a paper route, and I would just use that money to buy comic books, and that was my little soap opera every month. and it was my favorite. It was my favorite addiction. Like outside of, I just loved all kinds of pop culture. Dungeons and Dragons, playing video games, watching movies, watching TV shows. Like I was a bit of a pop culture junkie,
Mhm.
and comic books was that thing that really was a good half step towards me falling in love with books. You kind of just have to have a purpose to, want to pick up a book and read it, and then once you do, then the book will take care of itself, right?
Mhm.
And now I'm an adult. I'm reading David Sedaris. I'm reading Donna Tartt. I'm reading, Michael Chabon. I'm reading all these things. It's not like if you just read comic books, that's all you're going to read. You need to give kids this segue, this reason to love reading. Um, and so from there, my parents, like I said, they wanted me to grow up and be a doctor. So I went to a 4-year college, UC San Diego. Go Tritons. Got a degree in biology. I was going to be a dentist. And
Wow.
then, and my college roommates, they were the ones that encouraged me not to kind of like defy my parents, but instead they said, "Hey, you're really good at drawing. Aren't you curious to see if you're good enough to like get into art school?" And I thought, yeah, why don't I give that a try? And I made a portfolio, and I ended up in the Art Center College of Design. Uh, and I told my parents, and at first, I thought they were going to be really upset, and they said, well, you got a biology degree, but ultimately we want you to be happy, so go ahead and try it. And if it doesn't work out, you always have this to fall back on. Um, and it was really great because it just gave me this feeling like, oh, and now I get to be myself, and I get to show my parents that this wasn't a mistake. And so went to art school, graduated in 2001. I had to immediately get a job of some sort because I didn't want my parents to, immediately think like, oh, this was a terrible mistake. So my first job was in the video game industry. I worked at Activision for 7 years. I worked on like the Tobey Maguire video games, the Spider-Man video games. And most popularly, every kid goes nuts when I tell them this. I worked on the very first Call of Duty Black Ops game, and kids just lose their minds. Like even ones that are like 5, and I'm like, should you be, should we know this game? And then from there, I remember my first picture book was published in 2004, and let's see, yeah, my that was 3 years out of art school, and I published it with Arthur A. Levine Books. It was called The Gilded Geniuses. And that was my first taste of children's publishing while I was working in the game industry. And then from the picture book, I was spotted by a Hollywood agent. They had me pitch cartoon show ideas. And then I ended up with my own cartoon show on Disney Channel called The Replacements, which premiered in 2006. So here I am, 5 years out of art school, and I'm working in a video game company at the cartoon show, and I'm doing children's publishing while I'm also doing art gallery shows in LA, editorial illustrations for magazines all around the country. And I'm just firing on all pistons, and I'm actually kind of spreading myself pretty thin,
I was
right?
going to
I'm
say,
just
when did
going
you sleep?
well. So here's the thing, it's like finally when my first son was born,
Mhm.
and your kid's waking up at night every 2-3 hours, then the sleep breaks up, and then everything
Mhm.
just starts to fall apart. And I got to a breaking point where I said, okay, well, I can't do everything anymore. And so I left the game company, and then I actually left the TV show after the first season because dealing with the Disney execs was just not fun. And I also knew like they had already picked it up for a second and third season, so I just said, okay, I'm just going to collect the checks, but I'm going to focus primarily on picture books because ultimately what I wanted was to be at home with my family and basically, build a career where a big primary chunk of the work that I did was inspired by me, and
Mhm.
I wasn't building something in the name of a large corporation. Um, and so, yeah, Sidekicks came out, and that came out. That was very popular. Um, and then I signed my first picture book deal with Little Brown. That was The Adventures of Beagle.
Mhm.
And then, I mean, that was literally my second picture book that won the Caldecott Medal. And then my life completely changed.
Yeah.
And so, it was Beagle. Are we there yet? After the fall. Um, then I ended up doing, I did a 9-book series with Dave Pilkey, who was a fan of
Mhm.
Sidekicks. That was Ricky Ricardo's Mighty Robot.
Also
Made some
massively
friends.
popular at my
Yeah,
library.
made some friends with
Yeah.
folks like Mo Willems, and then Mo and I did a
Mhm.
couple books like Elf and Piggy Love Reading. Had the lovely honor of illustrating the 90th anniversary of The Little Engine That Could.
Mhm.
Um, you know, uh, Don't Trust Fish, a fantastic book by first time author for children, Neil Sharpson. And A First Time for Everything, my graphic novel memoir, winning the National Book Award. I just find that I, I keep I keep getting these wonderful opportunities, and I keep getting to just stay relevant, which I think
Mhm.
is a tough thing. Especially, I've been in this business now for 21 years, and I've done over 120 books for kids.
Wow.
Um, and I never thought that I would ever last this long. I never. I'm just. I'm just grateful that people still care. You know.
Yeah. Yes. You have, I think, a very loyal readership. And I mean, it's such an extraordinary whirlwind that you're describing. Um, and I think you're known for being so deeply prolific. You mentioned 120 books
Mhm.
so far and counting. I'm sure you've got like 50 more in the pipeline.
I think I'm
Um,
probably over 130 by now. I've
yeah,
been
I
saying
would.
120 for
Yeah,
several years now. I'm like, I think I'm past that.
it's a
Yeah.
it's a moderate estimate. And I'm curious because I mean, even just within your literary career, which of course is so expansive, you are creating in different formats, right? You've got different audiences that you're writing to. And you're working with all these different collaborators as well.
Hmm.
And I mean, you're like on your fourth or fifth book tour this year, I think. So
Right.
when you're
Correct.
juggling this many projects and you're bouncing between, maybe different art styles, certainly
Hmm.
different collaborators, do you have a process or a way that you approach all these projects at once that helps you kind of keep everything balanced or keeps them all moving? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question because many of my peers ask me the same question.
Mm,
And so I'll give you an example. Like right now, I'm currently working on, I'm going to say five or six
mm.
right now, all simultaneously. And really, it's just a matter of you're just putting out fires. You know, you
Yeah.
have like these tiny little milestones that you have to finish. Like someone will say, "Oh, I need the cover by this date." Okay, well, I need to put out that fire.
Hmm.
And then you'll get an email from another editor that says like, "Oh, what about our cover? You are the next fire. I'll put you out." Right. And then and then the other part is that, one's a picture book, one is a middle grade. Then you have graphic novels, three
Hmm.
completely different beasts, right? And so the only rule that I set for myself is that if I'm going to work on a particular book, that is going to be the project that I work on for the day,
Mm,
because you can't do a picture book like the first part of the morning and then shift your mindset to working on a graphic novel, because it takes a while to warm up into a different kind of format. So I will say, okay, today is graphic novel day, today is picture book day, and then today is middle grade day. And then somewhere in between, I'm finding some time to write, or I also make it a rule to make sure that I go out and get some exercise, because
mhm.
I think it's important to try to like stay healthy, because I think being healthy and maintaining your fitness also helps with the workflow. I hate to say it, but I feel like I'm working out just so I can do more work. Like that's a terrible mindset to have. But I think the best way to describe it is like watching a Tom Cruise movie like Mission Impossible, and he's running towards the camera and things are exploding all around him. Like that's been my life for like the
Yeah,
last 20 years,
yeah,
you
that's
know.
incredible.
But 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 I do it. But I've got myself in a position where um, a lot of these books that I do have gone on to great success, and so they've been expanded into series. I'm doing Misfits as a series. I'm doing more books with Neil Sharpson. I'm doing more Endlessly Africa books with Laurel Snyder. I'm doing more Detective Ducks with Henry Winkler.
Mhm.
Um, and so, just those four alone, now I know that I have to do four picture books a year at least, right? Or four projects a year at least. And then on top of that, I'm doing two Sashimi graphic novels a year,
Mhm.
along with one sidekick. So that's seven, just
Yeah.
just in a
Just in
year.
this single year. Yeah.
Yeah. And of those 7 3 are graphic novels. I
Yeah.
mean, what am I doing? Yeah, yeah.
You're delivering for young readers.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, and you just rattled off like this incredible list of collaborators. And earlier, you mentioned Dave Pilkey and Mo Willems. These are some of the most beloved voices in
Hmm.
children's
Hmm.
literature.
Right.
So, I mean, can you talk a bit about how you collaborate? I mean, let's just say on a picture book, for example, how you collaborate on a picture book. Because my understanding has always been that authors and illustrators often work separately. So I'm curious if that's kind of been your experience or if it varies by project. How does that look for you?
I will say it varies with project because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes some authors are a little bit more hands on than
Mm-hmm.
others. Um, it also depends on the person you're working with. So like if you're working with someone like Henry Winkler or Jake Gyllenhaal, for instance, they have a very specific idea in mind, but also someone like Jake Gyllenhaal is not your conventional children's book author. Like doesn't necessarily know how the business works,
Mm-hmm.
but very high profile author that's going to be on TV and has a certain vision, and so I can respectfully say, okay, well, I know what I'm in for this project, so I'm going to do whatever Jake wants, right? Meanwhile, I might be doing a picture book with Neil Sharpson, and this is Neil's first jaunt into picture books, and so he completely relies on my judgment on how to do the book. Sometimes you work with a certain publisher that can be a little bit more hands-on. You're doing in-depth cover meetings and stuff like that. So my experience of doing picture books for, say, Min Lay right now, I'm doing a picture book
Mm-hmm.
with Min Lay over at Random House. The art director and publisher over there can be very hands-on with the cover process, whereas it'll be completely different for me working with an author or doing my own titles over at Macmillan, because they're there working on my titles that I've authored. Um, so you're wearing many different hats. I wouldn't say you're shaping yourself into different personalities, but you are very mindful of what the client needs
Mm-hmm.
and how they are in a particular case. And so you just maintain a professional attitude, and you give what the client wants, and you try to do the best that you can. But at the same time, after putting 20 plus years into this business, they do trust your judgment for the most part, and they will let you just run with it. And sometimes you have to, it's a give and take. If they give you a note and you say, I'll give you that. Sometimes if you're really, firm on your beliefs that you're making the right choice, you'll push back.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a balance. But if there's anything I'm always committed to is making sure that everyone is satisfied at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think your long list of projects with all these different collaborators is such a testament to that and how you
Hmm.
partner with people. And I'm so glad that
Hmm.
you shouted out Minlay and that you are working on something new. I just have to say, Drawn Together is probably the book that I read while I was in library school that made me want to become a children's librarian. So,
Okay, fantastic.
that one is very special to my heart. So I'm eagerly awaiting the next one with
Yeah.
him.
So I'll give you an example
Yeah,
with that, because
yeah.
Drawn Together, I had worked with that editor for a number of years. Her name's Rotan Moskovich, and she gave me the manuscript, and I was experimenting with a new art style because if you recall in Drawn Together, the grandfather and the grandson, they draw their own certain ways,
Hmm.
and so in that respect, I couldn't draw like myself. I had to draw in the style of these fictitious characters,
Hmm.
right? And and then I would take those two art styles, combine them together to make a hybrid style. And a lot of that was just very experimental, trying to just collage pieces together to just see what worked. And you know, my editor was very hands off and said, "Okay, let's see what you come up with." And I remember she would normally expect me to finish a project in about 4.5, 5 months, but this was taking a little bit longer. We're looking at like 6.5, 7 months. And she would just chime in with an email and say, "What's going on? I haven't heard from you." And I said, "I'm onto something, and I can't tell if it's good, but it feels right."
Mm.
And she said, "Okay, well, I trust your judgment." And the end product was something that everyone was very, very pleased with, you know. And now Min and I have done, boy, I think we've done 4 books together, and right now we're working on our 5th. And now I think we've gotten to a point where, we have a reputation for working together, and we've kind of elevated in our status at the publisher. And so now, what ends up happening when you raise in status, what ends up happening is that more eyes come in under the project and go, we need to make sure that this is perfect. And it's like,
Mm.
no, 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 you need to leave me like we did back in Drawn Together and let this happen organically. It's again just a lot of give and take.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't mess
Yeah.
with what's working.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you kind of spoke about this earlier when you're talking about, you sit down and you decide today's picture book day, today's a graphic novel day, something like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Is there, well, I don't know if there is a typical day. You're traveling a lot. You're
Yes.
promoting. You're wearing a lot of hats at once. I guess when you're working on a book, maybe you're at home. Is there like a routine that you have to get into the day's work? Is there something you talked about exercise, sort of getting like your fueling
Hmm.
that energy to work?
Hmm.
But are there any routines that you follow or anything that you do to get into like a creative mode?
The only creative commitments I make, I wake up, and my kids are a little bit older now, so I don't have to drive them to school or anything. But like,
Mm,
I'll wake up, I'll check my email, I'll go for a jog, typically 4 to 6 miles.
mm,
If it's really hot, then I'll do some kind of conditioning, some kind of workout. But what happens is that you get the blood flowing, and it really opens up your mind. And so that's really good for the creative process. Just waking yourself, being alert, having a cup of coffee. I roast my own coffee, so yeah, I always have a cup of coffee. Um, and during the jog, I'll think about what it is that I need to do. And while I'm on the jog, I'll probably be listening to an audiobook or listening to a podcast or listening to music, mostly a podcast.
mhm.
But yeah, I just get myself limbered up and ready to get to work. And then I'll work from like 9:30 all the way to, boy, these days, straight to 5 when my wife comes home.
Wow. Yeah.
And then when my wife comes home, I generally typically hang it up for the day. I'll play with the dogs. We have 3 dogs. I'll throw the ball with them in the backyard, make dinner, spend some time on the couch, maybe watching a TV show or something. Probably have a sketchbook or an iPad, maybe working on some drawings,
Hmm.
and then off to bed. Um, and then when you're on tour or when you're traveling, doing school visits, for example, um, primarily a lot of that artwork gets done on an iPad.
Hmm.
And so, I don't. A lot of people don't realize, it's like when you're on tour, the tour could go for a week, could go for 10 days. Like Sashimi was a 2-week tour, and you wake up, you're doing 3 school visits, and then you get on a plane,
Wow.
and then you're off to the next city. And so you're either working on a plane or you're working on a hotel room on other projects, trying to just do whatever like little piecemeal thing you can. Um, and it's exhausting. It's so exhausting.
Hmm.
Speaking with kids, because I get kids really like energized and riled up.
Oh, I
And so
understand.
that's basically me
Yeah.
shouting into a microphone for
Yeah.
45, 50 minutes. And you're just exhausted. You're just exhausted. And you eat so poorly, you're just like, where's there to go? Wendy's? Okay, I'll go to Wendy's,
Yeah.
and you're missing out on that exercise. So you're
Yeah.
breaking up that routine. It's not the routine. And I'm just, oh God, I'm so fat. I've just spent the last 4 or 5 months like not doing my routine. And yeah, like I'm finally, after this week, it's gonna settle down, and then I can finally, just sit and get work done. But I do miss the routine.
Yeah.
But I do miss kids. I love speaking to kids.
Yeah, I have to imagine that does sound kind of brutal. I'm not,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
won't lie, but how does it feel after working on this? Of course, oftentimes with a collaborator, but I imagine working sort of solo and putting out fires and answering lots of emails from collaborators and publishing people to finally be in front of your audience and
Hmm.
share that with them. How does that feel?
it's good. It feels like a good testing ground,
Mm,
you know. Um, I have a lot of friends that ask me why I still collaborate with people when I
mm,
could just simply be working on my own stuff. And the truth is that, I learn a lot working with other people. So, if I find a manuscript that I really like, I will absolutely, work with that person because I want to be a part of it. Because there is a part of me that thinks, oh gosh, if I don't take this project, then someone else will get to put their name on that book, right? When I read Don't Trust Fish, I said, oh no, no, I have to do this, right? Um, because I can smell when a book's going to be a hit or it's going to do well, or at least I
mhm,
know it has the potential to be. Um, and then when I work on my own stuff, it's very personal. I think over the years I've worked on very deeply emotional things like Deeper After the Fall,
mhm,
and my memoir. But by nature, when I'm doing school visits, I'm very goofy, very silly. And, I think right now in my mindset, my goal is not so much about getting starred reviews or winning awards. Like my main focus is that I want kids to just have a good time with reading books.
mhm.
Because there was that recent, I think it was an MIT study that came out that said, reading for fun has gone down 40% in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And, I think I want to try to reinvigorate that love of reading that, got me to be a reader. And also, I, I, you can't really compete with social media and devices and iPads and video games and streaming shows and things like that. But I do think there is a way for us to make the medium of reading appealing enough to include itself in those things,
Mhm.
and so that's what I'm trying to emphasize in my recent work. Just being goofy, corny, fun.
Yeah, I really appreciate you, bringing up that study. I think your work is definitely on the front lines of that.
Thank you.
I, I work with children every day. I'm recommending books to children every day,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I just did a school visit. I talked to every student in a school over the course of, I think, about 5 hours. And I brought along a huge stack of books that you had worked on, because I was going to talk to the whole school. So I had stuff very helpfully. You have covered the full range of elementary school readers.
Right.
And every book that I was pulling out, they were just cheering for.
Oh,
And
great.
so I think there really is something there on, and earlier you were talking about how, as when you yourself were a young reader, how much
Hmm.
you loved comic books, and I
Hmm.
hear that a lot from families too. Oh well, we want them to go on to chapter books. That I just think anything that brings any reader of any age joy and makes them want to keep reading is what they should be reading.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I thank you for that. And I mean, actually, this kind of feeds into. I was going to ask you about your relationship with libraries. You mentioned you have had a school librarian that remember and mentioned by name, and it sounds like they made an impact on you. But
Mhm.
were you a library kid? Are there any library stories from your childhood or adulthood that you would like to share?
Yeah, no. So I grew up in Ventura County. I grew up in
Mm.
Camarillo, and so
Oh,
my
great
local
library.
my local my, yeah, so my local Camarillo branch. I remember every summer they would have um they would have a theme. They would have a
Hmm.
summer reading program, and I don't know if libraries do this anymore, but you would get. I remember this one particular year. It was the magic of reading, and then the theme had. I remember it had Harry Houdini. It was like this. It was like this book and it had Harry Houdini in it, and then it showed like all these stars coming out of a hat, and so every book that you read, you would get a star to put over
Mm,
the Harry Houdini poster, like the booklet, right? And then when it all got filled up, I don't even remember what the prize was, but there was this sense of accomplishment that said like, oh, I filled all 20 stars.
hmm.
And I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think there is something to be said. I remember talking to somebody about the popularity of Dogman books. And, it was a librarian who said, oh, a big appeal to it is that there's a tremendous sense of accomplishment when they finish reading the book.
Mm-hmm.
that they did it on their own. I never really, that's a great aspect of speaking with teachers and librarians, because you get their feedback about what kids are trying to get out of reading beyond the entertainment value, right? And you know, again, I'm telling you this story about like when I was 8, 9 years old, about filling up this Harry Houdini reading, pamphlet because I wanted to collect all the stars,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I had other friends, and the public library was this amazing resource for me in terms of just being informed about popular literary, books that existed in Western culture. Because my parents came from Thailand, so when I
Mm-hmm.
came to America, I was not familiar with any of those Western classics, right? And so you would go there, for school readings. Or I remember that was the first time I had ever seen. They did a community viewing of I guess it's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the Gene Wilder movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never seen it before. I didn't even know what it was, right? But it gave my mom an opportunity to just drop me off with all the other kids, watch the movie while she went out and ran errands, right? And there's something fantastic about the public library that it was almost kind of like it was this place that could, in a sense, babysit me while my mom had to go do something, do a doctor appointment or do something, right? And there was enough things to do there that kept me occupied. And if you went enough times, you'd see a lot of your friends. Because back in the day, we just ride our dirt bikes down there. Maybe have to collaborate on a book report or something for school. It was a big it was a big symbol of the community where people got together to do things. And I think there's a part of me that I live, one of the local libraries we have is the Alhambra Public
Mm-hmm.
Library, which is not far from me. It's a beautiful library, and I feel like nobody goes into it, right? But I do feel like if we can encourage more people to go to that library, it would definitely bring in a greater sense of community.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a definition of what the library is, because I think the libraries often sell themselves as, oh, this is the place to get information. No, this is a place to build a community, and
Mm-hmm.
I hope we can kind of get back to that, because I think people have forgotten, or there's been this new interpretation of what a library is, that it's just books, and who cares about
Mm-hmm.
books. And I think libraries, like I've been to the Houston Public Library in downtown, and that branch is amazing because they have video games, they have manga comics, they have tutoring, and this is very valuable for, like, single parents or dual working parents who can't pick up their kids after school, and the kids just go there after school, and they're watched and they're cared for, and they're helped with their homework and things like that. And that is just a fantastic, resource for the community.
Yeah.
And that's like the potential that I see of what it's capable of becoming, or should be, or is.
Yeah. I love you highlighting the community aspect of libraries. Actually, the last time I was at the Alhambra Library, um, they had set out this whole sort of like friendship bracelet bead set, and
Mm-hmm.
a bunch
Hmm.
of grown people just sat down and started making little bag charms to like hold our library cards. I had the
Nice.
loveliest conversation with people while we were there, and there's just such simple and little things that libraries do to encourage these interactions. And I thank you
Little
for
little
highlighting
pop
those. Yeah,
little pop culture fact: the Alhambra
yeah.
Library was the library that they used for the Pawnee Public Library in Parks and Recreation.
Oh, this is great. So, uh, my library, where I'm right now, Studio City, was also used as the Pawnee
Oh,
Public
is that
Library.
right?
Parts
Okay,
of
okay,
the interior here,
okay, okay.
and then
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think parts of Alhambra too. So they
yeah,
mashed
yeah,
us
yeah.
together. But yeah,
Right, right, right.
there is a scene where they come in and knock over an entire cart of books,
Okay,
book jockeys, and they run out, and that's us. And I think
nice,
every time. So
nice.
I feel we don't have beef with the Department of Rec and Parks, just so everybody knows. But
We're one and the same now.
yes, we
Yeah,
love
we're
each
sisters.
other. Exactly. And I love you remembering with such vivid detail this like Harry Houdini
Yeah.
summer reading book. And I could have asked you for a better segue because you are the artist for this year's Summer with the Library program with the
Cool.
Los Angeles Public Library. And
Hmm.
you have created so much artwork, like so much artwork. I wish I had more props. They haven't all arrived yet. I have a sneak preview, my extremely cluttered water bottle here, but this is some of our summer with the library
Hmm.
artwork. And um, you talked about how there's a theme every year and that kind of thing. And I'm kind of getting emotional thinking about kids holding your version of the game board this year and
Hmm.
hoping that they will have these memories of, these little critters that you've created, guiding them through their summer reading. But can you talk a bit about, the inspiration for this year's artwork? Our theme is postmarked from LA. You've created everything from like posters to tote bags. Is there, anything you want to share about the inspiration, how it came together, what it was like to work on this?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, having the opportunity to work on this for the LA Public Library system is just a tremendous honor. Like one of my favorite artists of all time was Dean Cornwell,
Mm.
and Dean Cornwell paints the murals, those beautiful murals that are in the downtown Central Library, on the wall, and he's like one of my favorite artists. But also, LA was a place that I grew up, and it's one of these places where on the surface it seems very superficial, very Hollywood. People can be maybe a little dismissive about it, just being like, various tourist traps. But it's for me, it's one of those places where if you know, you know, and it's just full of little hidden gems. And it's like if you find that if you turn over a rock and then you find that there's like this beautiful world underneath, right? And every little world has its, story. And a lot of the places that I grow, that I illustrated, were places that I remember we would take field trips to when I was a kid, Angel's Flight, for example. Like that was a very wonderful place. This was back in the day in the 1980s. Not a lot of people remember this, but like near the Central Library, there used to be the Children's Museum. Do you remember the Children's Museum?
No, I don't.
Oh my gosh, the Children's Museum was this great place. It looked like there was a whole section that had like this. It was supposed to be like the LA, plumbing system, and it was just
Mm.
a network of pipes that kids just climb through. There was a whole like news station where kids could like pretend they were newscasters, and you would actually have a person like videotaping you, cutting it together, making a news segment. But being able to illustrate the Central Library, being able to illustrate LAX, the Encounters restaurant, which used to be, I've only been in there once, and now like it's a historical monument that they don't use anymore, but it's like one of the most beautiful pieces of
Mhm.
architecture around. And I'm very fond about all these stories about LA, the history of places, and going back to the 1920s and the 40s, and all these stories about these places. I remember when we were first planning it out, I wanted to include the Magic Castle. I wanted to include,
Mm.
all these different places, and Griffith Park, and the observatory. All these places were places that I, went on field trip when I was a kid. And, you know, a- as an Angelino, there's a tremendous pride, mainly stemming from knowing what it was like being a kid, and then going through the good times and even the bad times of like remembering what the LA riots and things like that,
Mhm.
but then coming back together stronger, watching the Dodgers, watching the Lakers win championships, and going through things like that. And having grown up in Ventura County, I was always like I always considered myself Los Angeles to the core. And so um there is a tremendous pride about being an Angelino. And um and it's just a vast, huge city that represents so many people in the community and so many different cultures. That's just so diverse, and to be able to encompass that in a map of LA of
Mhm.
sorts, in stamps, or something, to try to capture as much as you can, like that. That's it's just a tremendous honor.
Yeah, well, it's an honor for us to work with you too, and your artwork really does come across as a love letter to LA, and it's
Mhm.
really lovely hearing you talk about almost looking at this through your child self's perspective too. That these are
Absolutely.
places that you were
Yeah.
fond of in your childhood, and of course they're so iconic.
Hmm.
So thank you. Yeah, yeah, it's been a joy to watch that artwork come together and see. We also work with a tremendous graphic designer who
Hmm. Hmm.
helps in creating all these different parts of the summer with the library experience. So I'm so excited for people to see and hold, pieces of your artwork starting next month. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Um, so I guess we're reaching towards the end of our time here. I have a
Okay.
few rapid fire questions if you want to
Hmm.
get into these.
Let's do it.
You can take as long or as short of a time that you want with these. But
Sure.
what's a book that made an impact on you as a child?
I was a big fan of Encyclopedia Brown, the Encyclopedia Brown
Mm,
series.
hmm.
Also a fan of The Outsiders.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and
Love that one.
still classics today.
Yeah.
If you could be trapped in any book, movie, TV show, anything like that forever, which would it be?
Oh my gosh.
I Barnacle Bay sounds pretty great.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't
Yeah,
want to plug my own series,
that'll
but
be my
sure. Yeah.
answer.
No. Yeah. I mean, that book basically is like, the unhinged version of me. So yeah, yeah. Barnacle Baby, fantastic. Yeah.
And is there a book that you admire that you wish you could have been part of creating? This could be any
Oh,
genre, for any audience, any time period.
I
And
mean, gosh.
I know these are like big questions.
Now, I'll be honest with you. Like, the one book that was just so marvelous and personal to me, and one of those things where you go, "Gosh, I wish I wrote that." American Born but Chinese by Jean Yang.
Yes,
I
yeah,
looked at that and I said, "Oh my God, this book speaks to my soul.
yeah,
I wish I wrote this."
yes, yes.
Yeah,
That's a great one.
yeah.
Well, it leads into the next one. Who are some current authors and illustrators who you find inspiring?
Oh gosh, Lei Wen Fong,
Yeah.
Katia Chen, she's a fantastic illustrator. Jean Yang, obviously. Um, Gosh, let's see. I mean, in terms of the adult end, I'm a huge fan of David Sedaris.
Hmm.
Huge fan of Michael Chabon. Um, I had I had I had this funny encounter with Colson Whitehead.
Mm.
Like because I had read the Underground Railroad, and
Hmm.
then I saw him, and I said, "Oh, he's gorgeous." He's gorgeous. Yeah, yeah,
Good to
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. And then there's another writer that I admire. His name is Simon Rich.
Mm.
Not a lot of people know him, but they would probably know more of his TV and film work. He was the youngest writer for Saturday Night Live, and he does these great books that are just these short humorous essays. I would love to do a book of like short humorous essays someday
I could
like
see
that. I
that.
think that'd be
Yeah.
great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, too many to name, but those
Yes.
those those are some of the
That's a
highlights.
great list. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Couple more.
yeah.
What's the biggest myth about being an author and or illustrator?
Um, Greatest man. I think a lot of kids might get the impression that you're rich,
Mm, right.
right?
Yeah.
Or that people. I think there are people. Okay, here's a myth that kind of gets on my nerve. There are people that think that publishing a picture book is easy.
Mhm.
They just come up, "Hey, I have a picture book idea. Maybe you can illustrate it." It's like, how dare you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know, just like that, huh? Yeah.
yeah.
So
I,
that
I
that's a, that's a myth. Yeah,
yeah, I see that a lot at the
that it's
library.
easy,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
What's the best piece of advice you've received as a creator from
Oh
anyone?
my gosh. So I'm gonna name drop here. I
Mm,
remember at this time I had a video. I was working at the video game company at a cartoon show,
mhm,
and I was making books for kids. And I was at San Diego Comic-Con in 2006. I'm at a rooftop party for hosted by Disney,
Mm.
and Stan Lee comes in,
Oh, okay. Casual.
and I'm surrounded by Disney execs, and then here I am. I'm just a total schlub wearing like a Spider-Man shirt and cargo shorts. And he looks at me and he says, "You look like a comic book loving type." And for a half hour, we're just talking, you know.
Wow.
And people are coming up to him saying, "Oh, can I get a photo? Can I get a photo?" And he's like, "Oh, I'll be with you. I'm talking to my friend here," and I'm just
Mhm.
pouring out my soul, you know. So, look, I learned to love reading and learned to draw by reading how to draw comics the Marvel way. I grew up reading Marvel comics. This right here, this moment we're having, is the all-time moment. I'm meeting my hero and idol. And I said, and I have a question, because I say, I don't love working in video games. I don't enjoy working on this cartoon show, but what I really want to focus on is making books. But ultimately I'm terrified. Like, I'm scared that I'm going to fail.
Mm.
And I have a house, I have a family I have to provide for, and I don't trust in my own instinct. And he looked at me and he said, "Listen, he said, don't do it for the money. Do what you love, and the money will find you.
Mm.
And if you're doing it for yourself, it's most inevitably going to be your best work. And so that's where you'll find your success."
Yeah.
And so that turned out to be the best advice I ever got from Stanley, who spent a half hour with me, ignoring everybody else in the room and making sure that I got the message.
That's so incredible.
Yeah.
I think that is a perfect place to wrap up. I don't
Yeah.
can get any better than that.
Right.
Yeah, so tell us, what's next for you, and how can people connect with you and keep up to date on your many, many, many projects?
So right now I'm working on the Misfits #4 with Lucy Yee.
Mm.
I am finishing up Endlessly Ever After #2 with Laurel Snyder, for those
Mhm.
of you who like choose your own adventure books. And the second one delves around the theme of the Greek mythology.
So cool.
I have Detective Duck #4 coming out with Henry Winkler and Lynn Oliver. I'm working on a picture book right now with Min Lay called Carousel. This summer, my second picture book with Neil Sharpton comes out called Help, I'm Being Eaten by a Bear. Sashimi book #2, Sashimi and the Field Trip of Doom, comes out this September. Sidekicks 3 comes out next spring or summer, I think. Um, I know I'm missing something, but yeah,
That's plenty.
there's ones that I already know that I have to get
Yeah,
started on pretty soon.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, but
absolutely.
that's a small sample.
Absolutely incredible.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to all of those, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's an honor.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Well, thank you so much again to Dan Santat, and thank you all for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this Your Author program, and remember to visit lapl.org/events to see more of our amazing programs. You can also check out the Your Author page at lapl.org/your-author to learn about upcoming author programs. And Dan Santat will be doing an in-person visit at the Studio City Branch Library on Saturday, June 13th at 3 p.m. And you can also catch him at the Central Library on Saturday, July 11th as part of the Central Library Centennial Festival. And make sure to sign up for this year's Summer with the Library Challenge featuring Dan's illustrations. The challenge starts June 6th, and you can learn more at lapl.org/summer. We truly appreciate all your support. The success of all of our library programs could not happen without viewers like you. So thank you.